I'd like to welcome Elliot and Tom to talking about what was started off to be called the first bridge to franchising, though I think it may have matured a little since then. Elliot works for Transport for Wales, and if I get it right, he's the senior program lead, bridge to franchising, open brackets, mid Wales, close bracket. Is that right, Elliot?
It is, but don't ask me to translate that into Welsh.
Tom Lewis is slightly more confusing in that when we started out talking about this presentation, he was the regional local bus service project officer for Powys. But now, I think I'm correct, Tom, if you've got your LinkedIn up to date.
Yeah, it's
that
correct.
You are now the regional transport program manager for the Mid Wales Corporate Joint Committee, which to lesser mortals like me means Ceredigion and Powys. Is that right?
That's 100% correct. Yeah.
Right. So you've obviously both been very much involved in the first bridge for franchising. And I think really I'll hand it over to you, Elliot, if we can get your screen to be shared. And shall we kick off with a presentation and then we'll take some questions and answers afterwards?
Sounds good. I'll just share my screen, Michael. Hopefully it works. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, thanks very much, Michael. Yeah, great to have been invited and with Tom and I, and what you're about to see, most of this will be delivered for the very first time. So I think we're as nervous as everyone is keen to see it. So obviously, Michael, do we leave questions for the end rather than going all the way through?
I think we'll leave questions for the end because that won't stop your flow.
Yeah, no problem. We might never
unless you want to ask a question at some point in the middle of.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Brilliant. Thanks, Michael. Yeah, so we didn't want this to be death by PowerPoint. It certainly won't take hours and hours and hours and we could have filled it with lots and lots and lots of other stuff. But we thought, what actually is going to be most interesting? What have we learned? What's it all about for those people that don't know what this is and what it's tried to achieve? And Tom and I have done our best in the last, what's it been, Tom, 15 months of the journey. So, yeah, so without further ado, Tom, do you want to introduce yourself? Then I'll move on the slide.
Yeah, so as Michael said, so thank you, Michael. And yeah, good evening, everyone. I was formerly the project officer for the retendering exercise within Powys. I've since moved on to a new role within the Mid Wales Corporate and Joint Committee. So yeah, that's me really. And to my left-hand side on the PowerPoint there is actually the manager of the passenger transport unit within Powys. So in fact, my line manager at the time, Sarah Leyland Morgan. And I believe there was due to be another picture on there as well, which was David Hall within Welsh Government as well, wasn't it, Elliot? I think you're probably best placed to explain David's position, maybe within Welsh Government, is it?
Yeah, David is both of our kind of, he's our stakeholder client in Welsh Government and is part of the bus team reporting into James Burgess. So David leads all things related to Welsh bus services for us as a day-to-day contact. So yeah, and I think although we've only got 3 of us on there, this has only been possible through a massive team behind us, with us. And I could have filled the slide genuinely with over 50 people from both Powys, TFW and Welsh Government that have made this happen. So this is all really the amalgamation of lots of hard work. It's not been easy, and you're not going to get Tom and I in the next hour or so saying everything's been perfect. Far from it. It's been a massive learning curve, really enjoyable, but I think the next 6 to 12 months, we really want to turn the screw, and hopefully we'll give you a flavour of what is to come shortly. So yeah, that's a bit of an introduction from us. So should I skip on a slide, Tom?
Yeah.
Where are we? It's just frozen. Hold on. There we go. Cool. So we've got what is a bridge to franchise. So for those of you who don't know, Bridge to Franchising was a program born around 18 months ago by the Cabinet Secretary at the time. I think it was Lee Waters, that announced that we were going to go into a bridge to franchising between TfW, Powys and Welsh Government. There was no textbook. There was nothing to say, here's how to do this. And I think I'd spent 3 years, my previous 3 years before coming into this role, in TfW Rail. Before that, I was working for Arriva Bus. So I had bus experience, but definitely for 3 years, I think once you're out of the day-to-day mold, it takes a bit of time. So it took us time to understand what the program looked like and what a strategy needed to be. So Tom and I and Sarah kind of tried to work together to try and thrash out exactly what we're going to try and do over these next kind of 12 to 15. It was 12 months by the time the timetables and services started for this Bridge to Franchising program. So Bridge to Franchising, so coming back to it, it was born in about September 2024. And in September 2027, Wales will start the franchising regional rollout, starting in the southwest. So Wales is split into 4 regions. We're splitting it into the southwest, covering 4 local authorities. So that's Carmarthenshire, Pembrokeshire, Swansea, and Neath Talbot. And then the second region in the rollout is North Wales. And I've seen one of our colleagues on here today, Peter, so it's great to see him. He's helping deliver that program in the north for September 2028. And then we'll move into the southeast with the Powys, taking the conglomerate of authorities there, before coming to Mid Wales in 2030 last. So the reason we needed to do what's called a bridge to franchise is because all of the contracts for local bus and closed school services, Tom, were coming up for renewal, weren't they, in September 2025? So what did we do? We tried to think about what could we realistically achieve without having the bus reform powers, and how could we leverage an investment of capital or revenue into the system to be able to really deliver the improvements customers want to see right now. They don't want to wait till 2030 for franchising. So hence this program of a bridge to franchising was conceived. So I'm not going to read verbatim every single word, but we're in a transition. And even in the next, what's it going to be, 4 years or so, we're going to try and improve things even further. So we're not going to stop here now that the new services have been introduced in September last year, September 2025. This is actually, it's like the beginning of the end of the first chapter. So yeah, we will certainly be developing things. And I think Bridge to Franchising, in a summary, in a nutshell, is that. And it all feeds into the kind of the strategy of the 20-year transport strategy that Welsh Government put out in 2021. I think Ken Skate actually published that. And it also aligns to various other strategies that we're going to touch on, particularly the sustainable Powys model, but I won't steal Tom's thunder on that. So if I go on to the next slide. Yeah, so Tom, I'll come to you in a second to hand over about sustainable Powys and what that means. But for those of you who are unaware, what TfW are trying to bring to the table is we've published a roadmap to bus reform, and hopefully if Michael and Daryl can publish the slides, etc., to people after, it's actually got a link to that. And I think for anybody interested to understand what TfW are strategically trying to achieve within our vision and values, it's detailed there. But if we were to summarize it in 6 words, it's one network, one timetable, one ticket. So everything we do every day at work is does it support that strategy? Is it trying to deliver a one network approach? So by that, I mean, are we trying to deliver a one network of bus, train, active travel, etc., boats, ferries, all these kind of things, all these connections make it one network? And there's never a right answer. There might be some wrong answers, but there's never always one right answer. And it's always what do we do best for the customer? One timetable is kind of that approach, as I say, just mentioned in there. One network brings in infrastructure, brings in that wider. It's not just all about putting a bus on the road. It's more about actually how do we give buses priority? How do we support the buses, electric buses, with infrastructure that they need? So that's what it brings in terms of one network and one ticket. For those of you who don't know, there has been an article published about 18 months ago by TfW announcing a deal with Hitachi for our multimodal one-stop shop for a journey planning app. That is very much in the works and will not be ready for a couple of years just yet. But we're hoping that will be the one-stop shop for customers wanting to go from their front door to anywhere in Wales using any form of transport with one ticket. So that's the strategy. It's going to take a while, but we will try and get there one day. So Tom, do you want to try and explain what your strategy was within Powys?
Yeah, so within Powys, we were effectively given the gift from our corporate committee and the cabinet within Powys to work on the sustainable Powys model. And what that is effectively a hub and spoke model. So officially they wanted there to be 5 key hubs. So Brecon, Landrindod, Newtown, Welshpool, and then Astragunlais followed then to finish as well. Those are the 5 key settlements within Powys, and within each of those, I think the plan is to have some of the key facilities really. So you've got, for instance, your leisure centres, doctor surgeries, and things like that really. So it was all meant to feed into the hubs. Unofficially, later on, we also adopted MAC, and you'll see from some of our network maps later on that we adopted MAC as kind of an unofficial hub within our work because of the mixture of different services coming in there. So we have obviously power services come in there. The T2 also intersects it. There are some Gwynedd services that come in there. So that was kind of unofficially adopted as a 6th hub by us, but it was mainly focused around the 5 core sustainable Powys hubs really. So yeah, that's how our work kind of designed the network around there.
Brilliant. Thanks, Tom. So you can see how we've already got multiple overarching strategies from different organisations, and we tried to get our head around each of them to adopt them as best we could and apply the principles in which they were meant. It's not always easy, and I think we're the first to admit there are things that we're about to touch on in a slide or two that has caused friction by their very nature of colliding interests from different parts, different organisations, etc., and different statutory responsibilities. That's a key one. So what do we bring? We absolutely didn't need to do bridge to franchising in terms of if there was, no appetite from a Powys perspective. I think Tom and Sarah have been incredibly welcoming us of TfW to say, let's work together. Let's try and achieve something before TfW kind of get the keys to the network, so to speak, in 2030. And I think that's where Tom and Sarah put a lot of trust in some of our expertise, particularly fares, ticketing insight, revenue modelling, cost modelling of the network. And I think we've been able to bring a lot of different expertise to complement the skills of Tom and Sarah, who manage the contracts now, don't you, Tom, on a day-to-day basis, and trying to deliver a punctual and reliable network every single day. So very much at the coalface. So if I go on to the next slide, I think, Tom, this one is you.
Yeah, it is indeed. Yeah, so these are some of the challenges we faced along the journey, really, as we were designing the network. And I think most of them you can boil down to effectively both time and funding. So um, I was appointed to the role of the regional, I'm trying to remember my old job title, but the project officer for the project in question in April 2024. And as Elliot mentioned, he took on the role September 24. Was it Elliot? Or the bridge to franchise came into being in September 24. So when you consider that um, our contracts or our former contracts only ran until September of 2025, we were up against it a little bit from the start. And when I took on the role, there was no development up to that stage. So I took it on totally fresh mind, but there was also no previous work apart from the existing network that was in place. So that included things like the public engagement, the consultations that had to follow, the full tendering exercise, and then the registration of services with the traffic commissioner to finish, which obviously narrowed us down by 2 months then to begin with. So we had to get all the services registered with the traffic commissioner by early July 2025. But then when you look on the funding aspect, then you've got things like, thankfully, we have been able to tap into a bit of the funding that TfW have given us, but there is only a finite amount to it. Similarly, our cabinet have also given a significant amount of money towards it, but we always had to be very mindful that we would utilize the vehicles within our remit to their largest amount of their ability, really. But again, the funding was not going to be infinite on that front, really. And then you've also got some operational issues, really, which lead to a network that maybe isn't as perfect for the fare paying passenger, maybe as it should be. So, for instance, we have to work around the fact that entitled scholars need to be fit into the network as well. So, movements to and from secondary schools mainly and colleges. So, obviously, it's not perfect for the fare paying passenger. Um, and then, yeah, also the fact that we have an aging Powys fleet as well. So, as many of you are probably aware, so we had some of our old Volvo Auras were being used on the T4, T14, and the X43. So those vehicles, will give you a bit more information later on into this, what is now becoming of those vehicles. But yeah, there was also that playing a role in behind the scenes as well. So yeah, there was a few complexities to the design of the network, really. Next slide, if you can, Elliot.
Yeah, thanks, Tom.
To add.
No, I think you summarised it quite well. I think for those of you who are in Powys knows how the T4 that was contracted by Tom and Powys alongside the T14 was transferred contract ownership over to TfW, officially into the Trowse Cymru programme. And in order, there was certain improvements made, and certain things like Tom touched on around entitled students, serving certain residents, etc. All of the requirements had to be taken into consideration, and it did take a number of weeks and months to finalise and then consult and engage with the public. And it's this that takes the time and eats into the mobilisation time that then leads to, not quite accurate information at the roadside. So if everything took a perfect amount of time and didn't take as long as it took, we'd have definitely been able to mobilise a lot more efficiently and get things moving on the ground for customers. But that's just one example of many that maybe looking back, and when we're now building the programme for Ceredigion, we're giving ourselves more time to protect the mobilisation and being more realistic to say, we can't achieve this in the time we've got. We just need to be a little bit more sensible and prioritize our time accordingly. So yeah, it's not easy when you only got a finite amount of money, and a lot of this was dictated to a large extent by the cost of the market. So whatever the bids of the operators came back, we were then going back through your cabinet, weren't we, Tom?
Yeah.
To agree the funding envelope. So that was only agreed. Was it?
It was the 11th hour. I think it was the 56th day before the registration. So it was a heck of a rush then to get them all signed off, really.
It was, yeah, and you know those are some of the challenges that we encountered. Again, we could have put lots in here. There's always going to be things internally in terms of red tape that we have to go through, governance of internal stakeholders, in governance in Powys, and then we've obviously got the public to engage and consult. So things took time. But hopefully what we're about to touch on is the shoots of the green. So if I go on, I think, yeah. So Tom, do you want to try and, I know there's a lot of wording on there, isn't there?
Yeah, there's indeed. So there are some improvements. And like we said previously, it has not been a perfect process by any stretch of the imagination, but it's just some of the modeling that we have done from things like there's been a 24% increase in bus mileage to, for instance, then we also did accessibility modeling. So that was, if I remember right, the availability of people to get to the nearest bus stop on the bus at the bus stop and to a town nearby to access services. So things like hospitals, groceries, things like that, really, leisure centres. And so there was an increase of 23% in better access for to these services for people within Powys. We also had an increase in the peak vehicle requirement on our network. So it was previously 40, I believe, which has now risen to 52. One very late addition on there, which I'm sure some of you have seen the news about. But and then we've got things like we had some modelling done with regards to the environmental footprint. So as part of our framework that we initially put out, we expect from a certain date during these contracts our operators to transition to a Euro 6 vehicle or newer. So we've seen a decent sized reduction within the carbon emissions within our network, or will be seeing a decent size reduction within carbon emissions within our network. For the most part, we have small, medium enterprise sized operators as well. So many of you are aware, we've got, for instance, Celtic Travel, Lloyd's Coaches, Williams of Brecon, Tannet Valley, and Owens operating many of our services. So yeah, providing very good service throughout, really. And then we will shortly, if you can see up the top right-hand corner, we'll go into a bit more detail about these in the not too distant future. I think a few slides time, regards to looking into some flexi zones for some currently existing services. So we'll look into that as well. And then also the increase in the state-owned fleet as well. So obviously we've got an influx of capital coming in from TFW. We've also got some of our own vehicles. So I think we'd be up to about 66% of the fleet being state-owned, either through the local authority or through TFW. And we're also working on improved customer information. I believe the rollout of roadside information is moving along now. It has happened a lot slower than what we initially expected, but at the same time, there was a limited resource on that front. But yeah, and we'll also see in a couple of slides time the work that has been done on the branding roadside information. and on our buses as well. So a bit of an exclusive coming up on that. So yeah, I don't know if you've got any more to add, Elliot, on that.
No, other than definitely the next slides are going to reveal us a bit more, aren't they?
Yeah.
Happy days. Good stuff. Thanks. So, yeah, do you want to take this one as well?
Yeah. So alongside TFW, we've been quite fortunate to tap into some of the funding and resources available to us. So it's been one of the things for a while that as I've noticed throughout Powys is although we are a gross cost contract local authority, we have for many, many years had operators running their own liveried vehicles around, and who can blame them? I don't think it was ever stipulated within contracts that they needed to dress the vehicles up in any Powys design. So free marketing in effect, isn't it? So, but as part of this framework, we've effectively said that we expect a Powys livery to be put on the vehicles. At the moment, we are very well aware that that is not the case, but it's more the case to the delay is due to the fact that we have been honing up on this design, really. So as you can see at the top left corner, it's been mocked up on, I believe, an Evora, and top right corner is a Mercedes Sprinter. We are rolling them out on all vehicles within the network, whether it be other vehicles as well, not just the Evoras and the Sprinters. So we were quite fortunate for TFW to have the brand team and the contract with is it UNED or ENED? I can never remember how it's pronounced.
You got it.
And yeah, so we've been working on that behind the scenes, and it'll slowly be brought out into the public domain in the not too distant future. And we also got one of our buses, I believe, on a later slide with starting to, well, an actual physical picture of it as well. So yeah, I think that's where we are with the Brandon Fleet livery at the moment.
Brilliant. Thanks, Tom. Yeah. To say the branding has been so some of just to go into a bit of detail as to how we agreed the branding. We've got a team network vision for what we want buses, bikes, all of the different modes of transport to look by the point of 2030 when the whole bus network's franchised. And that team network has got a look and a feel, and it's and ebbed and flowed as to what colours the buses are going to be in, and eventually we managed to settle on what you see on the screen. But then there was further discussions about whose logo should be on there, about who's contracting the service, because it's Tom and Powys who are contributing the revenue funding to subsidise these contracts. TFW are not providing any revenue subsidy whatsoever outside of the X48, but that's a very unique case in the whole of Wales. I've put that one aside. And then we were having discussions about where do we place the logos? We've got to make it easy for operators to maintain the buses. If, God forbid, touch wood, it won't. But if there's an incident, we've got to keep these vehicles as operational as we can. So we didn't want to be too clever with how we mocked it up and agreed it. So it took time, but we got there, didn't we, Tom? All of our stakeholders are all supportive of this. So yes, this should it aligns broadly a similar colour, similar scheme to the Trous Cymru that you see on the road at the moment, but subtly different with the green nod. But yeah, you'll start seeing them on the road shortly. Next slide. Is this one you? No, this one's me. It's not. So I think one of our big learnings through the process was we worked really hard, certainly Tom, Sarah and Powys's procurement team, to contract the services. And as soon as we went through the mobilisation period, there was a realisation we actually needed some customer-facing timetables at some point. In an ideal world, we'd have probably done it sooner. And I think that's definitely something we take on board. So we developed the template that you see on the screen now. So you can see the nod to Powys's logo, kind of bottom right corner. You can see features of it being bilingual throughout, and you can see links to other bus services in the orange lines. And you're probably wondering, why so much green? Well, green is at the moment the colour that the T-Network kind of emblem is going to give to bus, the mode colour. So we tried to, as best we could, support those with certain visual disabilities with the no black writing on white. I think that's some on the timetable itself. That's some of the learning we've taken into account, and we've added a typical journey bar at the top. I think this is definitely the start of maybe the start of the evolution of the process. By no means this will be the set for 2030. There's things we'd like to include on it, such as a connection. You've probably seen on our rail timetables, there's like a connection into other modes more visually. And I think we might look to do that in the future. But at the moment, we've now got bilingual, if we want to print them off, physical timetables, as you can see on the screen. So a big step forward. Unfortunately, we can't get these to download out of Travelline. So for those who do plan their journeys in Travelline or download timetables, it won't generate at the moment out of there. We're looking at other options as to what we can do in the short term with regards to these bus timetables. So we recognise that these timetables will change at some point in the future. They'll never be static. They will change from time to time for one reason or another. So we need to be careful about how we control the version and the publication of them. So we could go and print off millions today, but by next week, if we change one timing point, they could all be surplus to requirements. So we just have to be really careful and version control the document. So, but if anybody does want the copies of any of our bus timetables, they are freely available, and I'm sure Tom and I can provide those separately. So that is an offer, Michael, that we will give. Oh, we're flooded with hundreds of emails now. If I go on to the next slide, so that you can see the blend of how we're trying to move forward with the look and feel. So, Tom, did you want to take this slide?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. So you can see on the pictures on the left and right some of our roadside information. I'm not entirely sure where it is on the left, but I'm pretty sure it's the centre Gillsfield on the right. So you can see, as Elliot mentioned, the standardised green is both on the timetable case and within the timetable information as well. And the flag above is a newly rolled out thing as well. But also, if you look closely on the right-hand side, I believe just below where the timetable is, we've got the network maps, which we'll also be mentioning in the upcoming slides as well. So we've worked quite closely with it, with a few internal and external partners to hone them up as best we can. So Pindar Creative have done quite a bit of work with us on that. So yeah, as we said previously, we've adopted the same accessible branded timetables across the entire bus network display, and that rollout is still going on. Ideally, it would have been earlier, but there was still operational issues to sort out and times to hone up before we could go ahead and roll those out. And we've also included QR codes, which would take you to both the Welsh and English parts of Powys County Council's website. So we've effectively got a portal on there now with information regarding timetable information. Some of the maps that I've just mentioned are included on there, and fares and ticketing information. So yeah, it's really come together to give, in my personal opinion, quite a nice look. Really, I think it needed to be standardized for a while, and it's really gone that way now, I would say.
I think there's a lot of hard work's gone in from Tom, Andy, and your team in Powys to get these updated. So they're not just Powys timetables. They've also got to include Tras Cymru departures, a couple of Gwynedd services, others from Herefordshire, Shropshire, etc. Haven't they, Tom?
Yeah.
So it's it's not been easy, and I think definitely take my my thanks to, I think, Roger French, if he's on the call. He went out to test our network early on, and I think his report it brought it home for us, actually, the impact of not having information accurate on the roadside, and that's been a big driver for us to try and plow through any red tape, any barriers that we needed to get this accurate, updated, and out there to the public. So thanks to Roger, if he is on the call, for doing that.
Definitely, there's a few lessons learned from that, to be honest. And I think we're at least trying to still iron out some of those issues as well. We're fully aware that the information may be available still isn't absolutely perfect, but yeah, we are certainly working with to iron that out with, albeit limited resource.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Tom. A couple of sides. Tom just touched upon there. We've worked with Pindar Creative. We've worked with our network team. So how do we produce a map? People will be saying, "Oh, surely it's easy to produce a map in a linear format that's interactive." This must have taken 4 to 5 months. It was so difficult because you've got constant change of timetables through one reason or another, whether it be an operator wanting to register a commercial service, or whether it be a change in route because of X, Y, and Z. There was always something changing, but we eventually got there, and we then had to make sure the routes were reflected into our remix system. So other people might use Octobus, but we as an organisation, Octobus being just an example, we use Remix, and that then churns out some TXC files, some route files, and we are then able to export that to Pindar Creative, and Pindar helped us develop and turn the routes into something accessible that you can see on the left-hand side on the website. But I think actually the website stuff's going to come in a slide in a minute. So in the same format, the network maps were created in different sizes, A3, A4, A5, as you can see, featuring lots of different things. I think a big challenge we had was how much detail do we put in there without overloading customers, but giving enough information. It's always a balance. There's never a right answer. There's never a wrong one. We've just gone for a gut feel, and yes, we might look to change it because they are cluttered. They're not easy. For experts or industry people like ourselves, we probably can navigate these. But for those who don't live and breathe bus every day, I recognise it is difficult. I get that. So that's why on the slide in a minute we've done what we've done in terms of online. So Tom, is there anything you want to pick out on this?
No, I think that's pretty well covered it, to be honest.
I'll go on to the next slide. This is. Do you want to take this one?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So as I mentioned in the previous slide I presented, we had the QR code there, and I think I covered actually quite a bit of this when it came to listing all the things that are available on our website. Again, this isn't a finished product by any stretch of the imagination. It's still being worked on, not far off every day, to be honest, whether it be the links to the Travel Line Cymru timetables. So occasionally we're finding timings out on there. We're honing it up, and I'm sure it'll never truly be finished as minor amendments are made to services to increase operational punctuality. We also have details on the tickets and fares on there. Again, we could go into a great level of detail with regards to them, but we'd also encourage people to sometimes give the operators themselves a call beforehand. Just they occasionally have further detail as to how much it may cost to get from A to B. Or the local authority ourselves a call regards to tickets and fares. We might not have the exact answer for A to B, but we can kind of help you through some queries regards to that. Also, it's a section I believe that links into some of our highways department work regards to diversions and or events impacting the network. Um, and I believe there's also a complaints part of the website, which, as we've mentioned before, we will look. You know, complaints are quite handy actually with regards to helping us to um, hone the information we have. So, you know, it's all a learning curve for us at the end of the day. So I wouldn't say we welcome complaints, but they're quite handy on occasion to have um, and kind of understand how people are finding the network on the ground. And I said also say it's we're kind of working on the accessibility of the website. We've got a Welsh language version as well. We've tried to make it as easy read as possible. On the right-hand side there is the interactive map as well, which we've tried to make as accessible as possible with it being bilingual too. Um, and yeah, it's available on phones, tablets, and computers as well. So I think we've tried to make it as accessible as possible. And again, we welcome all feedback on the website because that can be honed over time too. So anything you do have, feel free to either bring it to the table tonight or feel free to do it through our website channels as well, and we can kind of work on it from there.
Brilliant. Thanks, Tom. So that's the bilingual website. If I go on to something else, just to touch on this, I think these will probably be rolled out in greater earnest. I'm sure Tom will be saying in when we get the new fleet, the refurbished fleet out there. It's all a piece of the puzzle. At the moment, customers, I think Neil James in the branding team gave me a nice term. It's branding soup. When you go onto certain buses, you see the operator's logo, you'll see Welsh Government, TFW, Powys, and all of the other authorities that often operators are undertaking contracts, because the buses, they'll go and do schoolwork, they'll go and do tours, they'll go and do a Shropshire contract, then come back for Powys. So we're trying to maximize the use of fleet for Powys so that those buses can then better reflect the branding, and we can work with operators to fine tune what that customer experience looks and feels like from either a passenger charter perspective or even audio visual tone and tone of voice, brand of voice, etc. So yeah, that's operator's charter template. Tom, do you want to give insight into tickets and fares?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's more information on this on our website, but not to bore you all too much. We did roll out a pilot scheme in and around the Gunlice area on our two contracted services down there, the 62 and the 64. And we did see a decent level of growth in both revenue and the number of passengers catching jumping on the buses down there within the February to April 25 stage there. So regarding that, we kind of led down the route of rolling out what was it? It was a
distance-based fare.
It was distance-based fares and an integrated ticket between the 62 and the 64 and the T6, wasn't it? So we that was quite interesting learning actually. It was used a bit of a test bed for us in that region. As I say, results were relatively positive compared to the previous year, and give a slightly bigger uptick than what we'd seen years prior to that. We also took the opportunity to take a decent look at our fare structures as well. So we've kind of banded them closer to what TFW have with the distance-based fares. I believe previously we had it on road distance, so you will see some some differences. £1.50, I believe, is our minimum fare at the moment. We have with the town hubs now, we've got some of our towns obviously extend further than the 1 mile that would be the part where £1.50 would become, say, £1.60, but we've used common sense to kind of draw the town boundaries. So £1.50 flat fare within the town boundaries of the core hub towns has been implemented as well. And we've also adopted the no return ticket approach that TfW has had for a good many years as well. So we've integrated our tickets for the most part with the TfW structure, and then obviously with the Welsh government's announcement of the £1 single tickets or the £3 day tickets for 5 to 21-year-olds. Obviously, we've adopted that on all of the services within our network as well. So I'd like to think that travel within the Powys network has become slightly more affordable. Obviously, it's not going to make a massive difference, but I think from the point of view of encouraging people to catch the bus, I think that has been made it slightly more encouraging for them, really. Yeah.
Definitely, yeah. No, I think Tom's put his trust in our expertise in this regard and supported us with rolling out how we should roll out the pallet screen, where we should have rolled it out in Ostragunlice. So this is how we join forces of expertise. We might bring the modelling to say, if we do this with these ticket prices, this is what it will generate, and this is how many passengers might board the bus, etc. And here's the impact on the overall revenue. And then, as Tom said, once the pallet scheme was shown to be a success, we really worked as quickly and as efficiently as we could come in mobilisation to roll this out into ticket machines. But there was a small kind of hangover from the mobilisation delay, wasn't there? So,
yeah.
But certainly not massive. And I think this distance-based fares, so this is the approach we are looking in franchising to roll out across TfW. It's for equity of everyone. So anybody in Wales that catches a bus for 0 to 2 miles will be charged the same. There's no more, it's £6 in Cardiff, but £1.50 in another region. It's all going to be a fair and equity system. That is our approach.
And
so,
I think this is a particular point as well where where Powys and TfW have worked particularly well together, as you just mentioned. Obviously, Powys as Powys officers, we have somewhat the geographical knowledge, but the resources that TfW were able to provide with the modelling were invaluable in this situation. So yeah, this is a particularly good part of the partnership so far, really.
Definitely. Thanks, Tom. Last couple of slides. Was this one me, I think? Oh no, next one is.
I think we're 50 on this one, aren't we? Yeah.
Yeah. The exciting bit now, if none of the rest was exciting, is you can see on the right-hand side there's some buses in a workshop, but Tom will come to that shortly. So when we went through the network design process, as Tom mentioned earlier, we went from a 40 peak vehicle requirement network up to around 52. So with the capital funding envelope at TfW, as people know, if you inject new capital buses and provide them to contract, it will bring down, maybe not significantly, but significant enough to reduce the cost of the revenue subsidy required, which is always the biggest, greatest pinch point, that revenue funding volume available. So the injected capex, as I say, it managed to do that, and the network design process led us to proposing for procurement 10 Volvo Evoras, and we've got 6 battery electric buses we're undertaking a procurement process for, and 4 brand new kind of minibus accessible sprinters similar to the flexi ones you've already seen in Powys. So one of those will become a local bus branded one for Powys, and 3 will be into a flexi scheme in Powys, which is incredibly exciting. So the new fleet, I think, we're led by the market. Obviously, the cost of buses is the cost of buses. We can't get them any cheaper, no matter, despite the fact we'll be ordering hundreds and hundreds over the next 5 to 10 years or so. We're in the same challenge with every other operating company wanting to acquire those buses. So it's been a 12 to 15 month process to get hold of such scale, such specific specification of vehicles from Volvo. And I'm pleased to say they'll be hopefully here between March, April, May time-ish. And battery electrics ready for the autumn. So there'll be a trial. The 6 battery electric buses, we're working with Celtic Travel on the in the kind of Landrindod, Llanidloes area for a package of services there to see how they perform. But by no means is it a silver bullet to lowering environmental emissions. The geography, the terrain is going to be really challenging. So we're just going to see how they perform over the first couple of years of their life to see whether it's got a longevity in mid Wales as battery electric buses. Tom, do you want to come on to the refurbs?
Yeah, so the refurbs, as mentioned previously, these vehicles were used on some of the former stagecoach services in South Wales, but there's also a few that Celtic Travel were running for us as well on the X48, X47 and X75 package in mid Wales. So at the moment, we are having some refurb works done on a couple of them, and we're going to phase them into refurb over the next couple of months. So yeah, they're down with Edwards coaches at the moment. As you can see on the right hand side is a picture of the one of the vehicles in question, which has been sprayed obviously with the branding that we showed you earlier within the slides. There's also some other works on go with them as well, some mechanical work, some works to bring them up to a statutory standard as well. So for instance, we're fitting them with PSVAIR related upgrades, internal and external repair and refurbishment, including the seating, subframe and chassis works, and then, yeah, as I mentioned, the rebrand and powertrain condition assessments as well. And when they're back up and running and ready to leave the garage, they will be rolled out again on our network in a better condition than what they went in. So yeah, that will be phased in over the next few months. Trying to think now. Do we have a final date for when the last one's going in, Elliot? Or
Other than the money's got to be spent by the end of March.
yeah,
So
the sooner the better, really.
yeah, and I think again, this is what we're coming up against as a challenge. Some of these buses that are due in for refurbishment have been parked up since September, and we knew we would find a challenge with them now needing to start up, and it's now trying to understand how we get them from said locations in mid Wales down to the workshop in Llantrisant with Edwards coaches. So they were the ones who won the procurement, and yeah, we've got to. I think another, we touch on it again, a challenge is we get our funding envelopes in 12-month packages, and the latest funding envelope of CapEx has to be spent up by the end of March. So we have an indication of what TFW has available next year across all of our programs, but we've been challenged. We have to spend this refurbishment money by the end of March, or we lose that money. So the services have got to be completed by the end of March. And hopefully we can get them into service straight after. The plan. Thanks, Tom. Last couple of slides. Yeah, do you want to talk on this? Because this is exciting.
Yeah, so some of our existing demand responsive routes will be transitioning over to Flexi in the next few months. I know we've put launching in January 26 within this slide, but I think really it'll be looking another couple of months really until this is back up and running. So currently we have the B83 route up the top of that map, highlighted in purple, and then a mixture of both the B57 and B58 routes in the yellow, down towards the bottom of the map. So yeah, we'll be adopting the Flexi portal for these. So at the moment, I believe you can either call a TFW manned phone line or book within the app. There's currently 16 schemes existing across Wales, and as I understand, it's quite a popular platform as well. Particularly for the yellow area, so the B57 and B58, we have seen quite static passenger numbers, revenue recorded for quite some time. So it was an opinion with us within the department that something needed to be done to add a bit of impetus into the region as well. Obviously, we're rolling out things like the roadside information, but I think it needed a little bit more than that, because I think within that region, I think it was looking relatively up to date, and there was pushed with some of the local community councils as well, and figures still stayed relatively static. But we will explore as well, as I understand, within the Flexi system, you can still have fixed timetable routes. So, for instance, up in Denbighshire, I believe even though it's recorded as Flexi, it's still a timetabled amount. It's still timetabled, but it will only run as and when that dedicated line is called. So very similar, in fact, to our B57, B58 at the moment. But we're going to add, I believe, in between the peak hours, we're going to add a flexi element into that. So, for instance, somebody in Raider calls and wishes to travel down to Bilth Wells. Well, as long as that one of the PVR is free, it will be available to move that person from Raider down to Bilth Wells. So I think it's there's an element of trying to use some of the resource available through the Flexi scheme to try and adapt and add a few more passengers to the network, hopefully.
Definitely. Thanks, Tom. It's definitely going to be a venture into the uncharted waters, isn't it, for Powys? So
Yeah.
we're going to see how it goes. But exciting times, and we've got that to come in the next couple of months. And I think I was just going to touch on this one. So you'll probably, when you go on to one of Powys's buses at the moment, there's no standardization of uniform, and it's just something. Although you might think, well, that's simple, that's easy to do, surely. Yeah, it relatively is, and not as much as costs as a bus. But we've had to design the branding, agree the colour scheme with TFW and Powys. Thankfully, both councils tend to go towards green anyway, or both Powys and TFW, so that's not so much of a headache. And we've also got out there at the moment Traws Cymru, Flexi, Local Bus, then you've got rail colleagues. We're all trying to align ourselves together and become that T network, become that standardised kind of look and feel for customers. And we're working with a company called Elite Clothing, who they employ those who struggle to get into employment otherwise in Wales, in Ebbw Vale. A great company who deliver all of our rail uniform at the moment. So we're looking to work with our operating partners on the ground over the next 3 to 6 months to try and get a more standardized look and feel for our drivers and give them something to be proud of, because they are at the coalface every single day, often fielding some very difficult customers, difficult problems, difficult, all the rest of it that comes with driving. So trying to support them as much as anything else. Anything else on this, Tom?
No, nothing more for me to add on that.
And did you want to kind of, as the last slide, do you want to touch on what's to come?
Yeah, happy to do that. So, as we've laid out in the previous slides, we'll be reviewing fare and ticketing initiatives going into summer of 2026. Similarly, reviewing the network going forward as well. We've got an extension to the X48 now, so slight change to that, but it's also now running on up to Shrewsbury on the later journey as well. So any fears of misconnections in Craven Arms later on in the day should now be allayed with that. The continuation of roadside information being updated. We've got the new and refurbed fleet, which will be hitting the roads very soon with its new branding. The flexi zones will also be following in the not too distant future. The real-time bus information. So as I mentioned previously, we're looking at Travel Line, Cymru quite often and adapting as and when necessary. So any feedback regards to timings that you find out on there, just let us know through the website or we've got a dedicated email as well. So that's buses@powys.gov.uk. So we work, it's relatively well monitored, so we keep an eye on that, and we'll try and work as best as we can on that. And then, yeah, we'll be reviewing performance and reliability as well across the first year to see what can be honed up and improved on our network. And then I believe, Elliot, you'll be working with partners in Ceredigion as well, won't you, going forwards to some of the lessons learned here in Powys. As we've said previously, there are some things that have gone well, there are some things that have gone badly, and we're very well aware of that fact. And all we can try and do is try and hone up as best possible our network and work to improve the bad aspects or the lessons learned within the process, really.
Definitely, yeah. No, thanks, Tom. And yeah, as Tom alludes to there, so we're starting already in the so we're now January 26th. Yeah, in September next year, we'll be doing this for the 9 services across Ceredigion, 10 local bus services technically. The 10th is being debated as we speak, but we should then know the scope of the size of the reletting process for that. And we'll have our second bridge to franchise, probably the last before franchising kicks in each of the regions. So we've got a big opportunity to try and franchise, inverted commas, as much of the region as we can without having the powers available. So we'll be working with stakeholders in Ceredigion to adopt things like the same ticket and fare schemes, hopefully invest in a lot of new fleet as well for Ceredigion. Our aspiration is to try and get up towards 75%, if we can, of brand new fleet across brand new or refurbished fleet for the whole of Mid Wales by 2027/8. So it'd be an enormous undertaking, and that would really prepare us well and give us a good, strong foundation ready for franchising in 2030, because we'll be starting that process in 2028. So it's not too far behind. Michael, I'm conscious we have done more talking than what maybe we thought we would, but should we open it up for questions?
I think that'd be a good idea. If you want to not share your screen.
Yeah, I would.
Yes, thanks.
There we go.
Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for that. I think it was a fascinating insight. I know that and I'm sure some others have travelled around Powys shortly after the changes thinking, this could be done better. But you know that's the case. And I think we had this conversation before we went live about the only trouble is with one person putting up the publicity displays in Powys, it's very difficult to be at the 5 hubs on the same night when everything changes and things like that. I think one of the things you've acknowledged is timescales. And I was minded that everyone likes to have buses like London, but some recent London tenders were awarded, and actually they're not starting till November. They've got time within it for all the processes that London builds into it. And that's probably one of the sort of things you've learned from this, that actually a lot of this is very difficult. If you start concertinaing anything up, the whole thing doesn't quite gel. Anyway, I think it was a fascinating insight. And has anyone got any questions for Tom? And there's one straight off from Phil.
Yeah, thanks. Very interesting. Two questions, if I may. One is the tender model. I'm assuming with all this control on fares, it's a gross cost model, but I may be wrong, or it may be mixed. And the second question, I was just doing a little bit of research during the presentation, and I noticed the average adult age in Powys is 47.1 years, I think. And given it's predominantly rural area with thinly populated towns and villages, with what sounds like a reasonably modest increase in PVR of 12 vehicles across the network, might pose some challenges in recruiting drivers in such thinly populated parts of Wales. I don't know.
Yeah. Tom, do you want to take that first bit, Tom?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you're 100% correct there, Phil. They are gross cost contracts, and they have been across Powys for quite some time. I think with the exception of the T14 prior to September 2025, almost all of our routes within Powys, barring the 461, which runs for any substantial length of road, have been gross cost contracts. So it's only the 461, which is a Herefordshire contract run by sergeants, that wasn't a gross cost contract within Powys. And then, I think you're 100% right. I think there is some elements of operators struggling to recruit drivers. As you mentioned, we are quite a thinly, or the opposite, a lesser densely populated county, really. I think our largest town within Powys is Newtown, which has a population of around 10,000. So, it's a difficulty. We've got a good set of operators, and to be honest, even with the short lead-in time of 56 days beforehand, which was all they were given, so we were effectively told we had enough money on the 56th day. We let our operators know. They put all the paperwork in, and we still had buses run on the 1st of September. And I think that is due to how good our operators are within county, that they were still able to find those drivers at such short notice. They did a really good job on that, to be fair to them.
And there was a second half to the question, wasn't there, Phil?
Oh, do you want me to take that, Michael, around? I think Tom touched on it around that population, the aging nature of, the rural network in Powys, and the population. I think you mentioned 47.1 years of average age, which is obviously high. And I think just before the public engagement that Tom and Powys undertook, there was a period of operator market engagement. And I think we were conscious that if we do flood this with trying to double the PVR overnight, it would be difficult. And I think you'll probably see that approach in greater earnest in the Southwest franchising, in terms of staggering and phasing the introduction of new service, because we know an SME operator can't go from 10 drivers up to 25 in 4 weeks. No, it's impossible. So we're just trying to, I think we were certainly conscious of where we were trying to increase PVR. We had healthy enough competition to go, you know what, we know the market down there can probably cope. I think that's probably fair to say, isn't it, Tom?
Yeah, I think that's right, yeah.
One thing I will comment in, you were probably fortunate in the time of year you chose to introduce this, I suggest, also for the staffing. When I did an X80 across from Brecon to Llandovery, the driver was quite happily telling me how last week he was on an extended tour to Italy, and he'd come back, and being September, tours were finishing, and he'd been put onto the bus work. So had he introduced it earlier, it may have been slightly more interesting finding the staff, but that was an interesting reallocation of resources there. Anyway, Phil Drake, you've got a question?
First of all, thanks for a splendid talk and introducing what looks like being a splendid network. When I compare what's on offer now from, say, Brecon to Newtown, or even more from Llangewy to just about anywhere 50 years or so ago, things are booked up amazingly. It looks like they're going to get even better. I realise this is not perhaps your top priority, but you're going to be running what are probably fairly empty buses through some wonderful scenery. And I would hope to see it marketed more to a sort of wider tourist market. It's one of my constant bête noirs. You walk into a TIC or a hotel, there's loads of leaflets for theme parks, never knows what. Very little to encourage people to get on the bus and go somewhere. It'd be nice to see the network marketed like that. Stagecoach and the Lakes has got to be the gold standard on that, I suppose.
Yeah, go on, Tom.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really, really good point as well, to be honest. And it is something we're quietly working on in the background as well. The production of leaflets. Obviously, I'm leaving this role now, but it'll be whoever takes on my role will pick that up with Elliot. I'm sure you've still got it as part of your program, haven't you, Elliot, going forward? So leaflets to go out locally. I think a lot more work has to be done with the local community councils as well to help push the network too. So I think that would certainly help on that front. But it's definitely something that's being thought about on this end, and I know it's not been properly implemented as yet, but there's definitely work to be done there, and I think we appreciate that really.
Great, thank you.
That one of the, Michael, if I may,
yep.
Is Phil, thanks for your thought and comment, and it's really valid. I think this week, Tom probably won't know, we have just started that process of how and where and when do we want to market the network. So we've drafted today actually the latest press release for the industry, and we are collating a list of libraries, hotels, communities, etc., to be able to print some physical leaflets. I think, again, I come back to it earlier. As an example, the Trowse Cymru team are looking at tweaking some part of the T6 in the coming months, and all of a sudden, any timetables with a T6 that it integrates is then going to be surplus to requirements. So we might be constantly chasing our tail. We're just going to have a think about how we do it best, and whether we do publish timetables in leaflets or whether we keep it broad, keep it high level, and say, for more information, go to Travelline Cymru, and here's all the good stuff that we're doing. Maybe that's what we're doing. So
thank you, Phil. Which might lead me into an advert, because one of the things in the South Western Wales branch that we tried to put together, as it became sort of slightly obvious that there wasn't going to be a, dare I say it, Powys timetable. I dare to say it's not going to have Welsh in it. It will be black on white, which is kind of to all the things you were talking about earlier, Elliot and Tom. But the South Western Wales branch is looking to publish very soon a Powys timetable with all the routes that we believe work in Powys, which will be sent out to those who subscribe to the bulletin, and it'll be available electronically. Just doing it in the old school way of doing things, and dare I say it, with a map in the middle. So that is something to watch out for in the coming future, but that is it. It got delayed slightly. We hope to have it out just before the talk. We were coming out shortly after. And that's something that we've just done because we feel it's worth having a record put down of what's there, and we can store it in the archive, bus archive and such like. And it's a benchmark of what's actually happening in Powys at a given moment in time. And as everyone says, they keep changing. Miller Watson, you've got your hand up.
There we go. Thank you. Thanks. And first of all, thanks very much for the talks, folks. Very, very good. Some of the stuff that was on there about WCAG and the accessibility, that's all stuff I'm doing at work just now. So yeah, it's good to sort of see that the accessible journey starts right at the start, right the way through, and then into work itself. So yeah, great. One of the things I kind of wanted to talk about, and it is to do with franchising, it's to do with the maintenance and procurement and things like that. It seems that Powys themselves, they're procuring the vehicles. Will, I suppose, at a later date, when you've got the franchisees and you've got different people working the services, will you get to a point where you make a stipulation that, well, it's got to be this frequency with this size of vehicle, and it will be up to the franchisee as to what vehicles they purchase?
I think that's probably best addressed by you, Elliot, is it, regards to the vehicle procurement?
Yeah, very good question. Nice to meet you, Mel. Thanks for joining the call. Good question. So current situation, we are procuring the buses and working with Tom in Powys in terms of Tom will say, we'd like 10 Volvo Avoras or 10 buses of this size. We go to our framework and we work with our procurement teams to go through our list, and we eventually came out with Volvo. They won that contract. And the same, we are underway with our battery electric buses at the moment, and we've also finished the procurement for those mini buses. So that's what we're doing at the moment. And then those buses are so here's what we've been working on that's quite complicated, but maybe if you're in the legal lawyer sphere, quite simple. Is in order to give those buses to Powys, we have to agree a head lease with Powys from TFW, because we are not a grant funding organisation. So then Powys and Tom have to then agree in a sublease with the operator the contract terms and conditions for the use of those buses. So the head lease mirrors the sublease of the vehicle, and the sublease mirrors the service contract that the operator has right now for the service levels. So in other words, if God forbid, hopefully it doesn't, if notice is served on the service level agreement, it's mirrored in the fleet, and then obviously an operator isn't left with fleet they can't do anything with, for example. So that's the current contractual situation and the way with procuring things to help with Tom and Powys. So the operator currently maintains and looks after them. If they need technical help, they can get it, but they're a lot more skilled and experts than us. And then in franchising, so we're doing this now because if we by 2030 can have an entire fleet already owned by the state, it's then a lot easier for competition in the market. We can then support SME operators, because that is the Welsh Government strategy, that we support SME operators as much as large organisations such as the Stagecoach, Arriva, First, etc., Tower Transit, in gaining work. So if we have a fleet we already own, we can keep our revenue subsidy as low as possible. So in the same way, we as the franchising authority, TFW, in effect lease those vehicles as part of the contract, free of charge technically, to whoever the winning bidder is of a contract, and they operate those services and maintain them. There'll then be, I'm sure as you'll be aware, for any fleet colleagues on here, there'll be an element of assurance moving forward. So every 12 months, maybe, we'll be looking to do an audit and working with the operator to provide areas to improve their engineering, etc. Again, they're experts at it now. This is really the extra polish to prevent problems arising and to give our stakeholders assurance that when we're giving Tom £6 million worth of assets, everybody's looking after them as they should be. So, yeah, hopefully, Miller, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does, and it kind of obviates a sticky wicket that whilst it was in the railway world and it was in Europe, when they franchised or they started sort of part privatising in Germany, the incumbent lost the contract and someone came in, and of course what the incumbent did was it took all its trains. So when they moved into the depot, there was nothing. So yeah, that's that does make a lot of sense. Thanks very much.
Yes.
Can I ask you a question, Elliot or Tom? It relates to what cross-border and boundary services. You mentioned the 461 and 2, which is obviously a Herefordshire contract, which very much comes into Powys. we've seen it in England where bus services have disappeared when local authorities can't agree either side of the boundary what sort of service level. Just talk to the residents of Wotton Under Edge about their bus to Yate, and they will talk forever about what happened there. But are we going to enter the stage where, say, like the 461 and 2 from your preference would be split at Kington, where you have the Powys tender and you can have Powys vehicles on that? Then Herefordshire can sort out what they want from Kington down to Hereford. And the other one, these sort of things like the X80 is timed to connect with the 280 in Llandovery. And the 280 is a Carmarthen contract coming up in the next 2027 tranche of tenders. But it's rather tied up with the timings to connect with your X80. I mean, how do you deal with the cross-border services?
Yeah, I think the element on the X80 I can address. I think the maybe the 461 and the cross-border into England is probably better addressed by you, Elliot. We have been working quite close with members of the TFW team working down in the southwest. So we are going to. I don't think there's all too much proposed from what I've heard at this moment in time. They should still connect up, in effect, the 280 and the X80. I don't think we're able to adapt with them. We're working alongside members of the TFW team in the southwest to ensure connections are made as they should. Going forwards, I couldn't really answer what it'll look like in the future, but particularly cross-border. I don't know how that will look actually, Elliot, with the 461 as an example. I don't know. Are you in a position to answer that at this moment in time?
I can kind of give an indication, but I think the disclaimer is anything could happen between now and franchising when we're still yet to receive royal assent. So we're still surmising to a lot of this until we get supporting legislation. So I can answer it to best my knowledge, but again, it might change. So first question, how might things cross-border provision change between Wales and Wales border or within two LAs in Wales? Really good question, Michael. So 2027, Southwest is going. The team down there have done a great job by already engaging with the stakeholders in each bordering authorities and are bringing those authority stakeholders together to agree in advance what that provision should look like, where the anchor points are, where the timing points need to be, where they need to integrate so that everybody's needs are met as best as possible. It's all about a partnership approach. TFW is coming in to we could almost clone exactly the same services and just contract them, take over the contracts on paper. That's easy to do. We're trying to improve things for a wide range of reasons. So the cross-border provision is, I think it's all about careful stakeholder management before engaging with the public internally. So I think that is within our gift. I think the difficulty, Michael, within internal boundaries is things such as concessionary reimbursement, things like that. It's all the way it's calculated is complicated. It's not easy. And these kind of things, either side of a boundary, where a boundary on one side is franchised and one where it isn't, is still being fine-tuned on the approach. How the money gets from Welsh government, so all of the money comes from a treasury in Welsh government, and ultimately the Department for Transport in England, is that money eventually has to get to operator, but which pipes are moving to get that money to the operator is still to be agreed. So that's in a short, I've tried to summarize things very quickly there. The only difference, England to Wales, Wales to England, is obviously different sets of authorities. And if they do come into a franchised region, like London, they'll require a permit and they'll have to demonstrate that they aren't extracting revenue from the system disproportionately to what, it's a balance. Customers need to continue getting to the bakery, from a service starting in England. So we recognise actually a permit system shouldn't scare operators away. It's more a red tape process, to be honest. So yeah.
Daniel, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I was going to ask a question. Do you know the Welsh, the South West Wales area which I'm in?
Um,
Do you know,
yeah,
you
reasonably.
know what date they'll go live in 2027?
Yeah, that'd be more your kind of region, wouldn't it, Elliot? The TFW Southwest region.
Yeah, so the franchising contracts are planned to go live on the 1st of September 2027. That's the plan.
And you've started
And I've got
consultation on
another
that already.
question.
Yes, we
I've
have.
got another question as well.
Go on then, Daniel.
What happens if an operator does not want to run a route?
Good question. So hopefully we don't get to that point, because we are doing lots and lots of market engagement, public engagement, stakeholder engagement to try and ensure there's continuity of service for customers. We are doing everything we do every single day is for the customers. So it might not feel like it, but the risk of an operator not wanting to serve a customer on a service, in other words, the risk today of an operator shutting the gate and going is as high now as it will be in franchising. We can never stop that. We cannot dictate the price of fuel overnight. Anything could happen, but we will work and collaborate and a social partnership approach to try and prevent that happening. And if it does, if an operator doesn't want to do a service or there's no bids for a particular area, there are procurement avenues which we can go down to try and source an operator if for whatever reason we don't have an operator willing or wanting.
I mean, that is quite relevant for the Southwest, because Pembrokeshire had that precise problem when they took over the operation of Edwards, because if they retired, the whole of the Dale Peninsula would have been without an operator. So Pembrokeshire run their own services now, in addition to what they did before. And it's where they've had to step in, which will be interesting to see how they do tendering for their own routes. But I won't go for that minefield. I'll leave that one. Bill, you've raised your hand. You're on mute, Bill, still.
Does it mean we get one last question?
You've got one from Mark Howarth.
Yeah.
Mark, you're on mute. That's it. Yeah, we still can't hear you, Mark.
Right,
Still
I've
can't hear you,
unmuted
Mark.
if you can't get Mark.
Oh, I think Bill's unmuted now.
Can you hear me?
Shall I go, Michael, seeing as I've unmuted?
You've unmuted now. You
Go on,
go,
Bill.
and we'll see if
Right.
we can get Mark back talking.
Sorry, right, I'll start again. Yeah, thanks, guys. That was a fascinating presentation. I've got, well, one main question. One of the real challenges for the SME sector in areas that are going for franchising in England is the volume of bureaucracy in even getting to pre-qualification, never mind submitting a tender. Now, in terms of current local bus tenders, obviously every local authority is different, but what is very clear is that most authorities going for franchising are demanding a huge volumes of information that SMEs simply don't have the resource or the time or the expertise to complete. Do you have a view in your transition plan on how a tender document for franchising will differ from what is there currently with Powys or wherever? Or do you see them as being very similar in terms of procurement procedure?
Tom, do you want me to try and tackle this one?
Yeah, I think it's best for you on this one.
Yeah. So we'll take bridge to franchising. We modernised the contracts working with Tom and Sarah and their legal and procurement team. So unfortunately, operators in Powys still had to go through the framework process to plan to the DPS, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And go through a lot of paperwork, and that wasn't necessarily bilingual, wasn't necessarily accessible, etc., etc. Really painful. Another feedback it was. So as part of our procurement for franchising, part of our procurement strategy, and I mentioned it earlier, we are trying to support the SME market because we recognise a lot of operators in Wales are literally one person, driver, cleaner, operating manager, etc. So how are we supporting them? We hope that when an operator signs up onto our framework, they only have to do it once, which is fantastic, and not 22 times for 22 different authorities. And then they just place themselves into the relevant lots of work, and we can then call out competition in each of those lots as and when we go through the rollout of tendering. So we're not just going, here's 50 contracts, go and wade through them all. They're being done in waves, and they're being done. There's, without going into too much depth, there's 22-ish contract packages, I think, in the Southwest Wales, there and thereabouts, 20 to 25, and certain packages will be sized in different ways, different areas to support SME operators. So not every single contract opportunity, for example, will have a PVR of 50 or 60. They'll be ranging from a couple of PVR all the way up to 150 to 200 maybe. So hopefully we're supporting the SME market through the paperwork, the administration, and the way we actually procure in a staggered way. Does that? And also, we are supporting the SME operators. We've already given everybody a contact through, I think, CPT and Business Wales in support as how to undertake the paperwork. The paperwork in which SMEs will need to fill out isn't going to quite be as comprehensive as a full-blown Arriva multinational. So, but I can't. Obviously, I haven't gone through all that process yet. All I'm saying is the strategy is there to support SMEs. So
Thank you.
Fingers crossed, Bill.
Yeah. Thank you. Cheers.
You want to try again, Mark?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Think we can.
We
Keep talking.
can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good, because it's got to come a long way. Thank you very much for the presentation. It was very interesting and great to see all the things that are being rolled out. One thing you didn't really mention was bus priority, bus lanes. Is that within the plan? Do you have political buy-in for that, and indeed a budget for rolling out bus priority? Because that will obviously assist in reliability and efficiency. And the second question I have is you mentioned a couple of times about timetable changes. Time seems to change quite quickly. Is it the plan to go on, say, 2 changes a year, or to have fixed time changes, which obviously gives reliability and confidence to the public?
Yeah. Yeah. So with the priority bus lanes, I'm trying to think of it within the county at the moment. Currently, do we have any? I don't think we do. Thinking off the top of my head, I don't think we have any currently. With my new role, actually, that I'll be moving into as the regional transport program manager, it would fall slightly more within my remit, but I'm very much beholden to the requests that are put forward by the individual local authorities, so Ceredigion and Powys. Again, there is an element of funding that they've put forward for bus infrastructure improvements, but I don't think, again, that priority bus lanes have been included within any funding asks that they've put forward either. So yeah, I don't think there is any plans for priority bus lanes in any of the larger settlements within Powys anyway.
The question really comes on more when you get into places like Swansea, Cardiff, Newport, and places where there could be great advantage. That's slightly further down the franchising line. You could probably brought this over to Elliot rather than.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you want to take it, Elliot?
But I think you're spot on, Mike. I think there's greater competition for road space, isn't there, in the big cities, and there's so little room, so little, perhaps so little reason at times in deep rural Powys and deep rural Ceredigion. I think for those that don't know, is for years and years, the devolved power from Welsh Government in terms of decision making on where money is spent on bus infrastructure is up to local authorities and what's called corporate joint committees. So a corporate joint committee covers each region in Wales. So we've got 4 regions and there's 4 corporate joint committees, which Tom touched on. Is the corporate joint committee approves the suggestions from the local authorities. The pot of money that each region is being given is shrinking slightly, perhaps in real terms, and the number of priorities and policies in which councils want to spend that money is going up. So it's a double whammy. You've got one going in one direction and one going in another, and the worlds collide and go, we want everything at once to be spent on bus infrastructure, on roadside infrastructure, on new train stations. Everything has to be prioritised accordingly in line with what the local authority and CJC and its stakeholders want. So I think if we all could, we'd give buses right away and the cars would all clear out the way. But by nature, it's very difficult to create schemes that give value for money to the taxpayer in suitable time. But Michael, yeah, we could ramble on about regional transport plan all day.
You had a second question, Mark, didn't you?
Oh, yes, yeah.
It's yeah.
Oh, sorry, I do remember the second question now, Mark. That was more specific to the Powys network, was it, or TFW's network down in the southwest?
Well, both. Generally, are you trying to work towards just 2 changes a year or 3 changes a year or whatever it is, rather than a haphazard, this is changing this week and that's changing next week and so on?
Yeah, I think from Powys's perspective, we are still very much within the first year of the contracts, or not even the first year, it's the first 6 months of the contracts, and there are still some operational issues where timetable changes are very much necessary in order to hone up reliability, punctuality of services. I think once things have settled, we will be making quite limited changes to timings within Powys, mainly due to the fact that we are beholden more to scholar movements at the beginning of it and end of the day. So what we can do in between or after those peak times is really quite limited, to be quite honest with you. I don't know what TFW's plan is for the future, but I imagine it's probably broadly quite similar, Elliot, is it? It's
yeah, I think it is. Yeah, I think we're still mapping out what that customer work stream needs to look like. What are our customer expectations? And because we're trying to be a multimodal organization, we're trying to do more market research. Our colleagues, traditionally rail roles, are trying to work with us to understand what the customer is expecting, because it isn't sustainable to make 52 timetable changes a year. And as you know, at the moment, a commercial operator could change as soon as they serve notice to a traffic commissioner. So we're trying to provide some stability, but that is only as good as the certainty of revenue funding coming forward from the authorities. So we will do our best to reduce the amount of change for customers. Absolutely.
John Young.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to pick up on Mark's well-made point about making sure buses can get through the traffic and the delay hotspots. Obviously, Wales is a very rural county, but there will be places like some of the bigger centres where there are challenges. And I just urge you to sort of think afresh about what those challenges might be, because traffic congestion is getting worse. There's more traffic on the roads, and often it's parked cars and vans. There's more vans on the roads. Cars are getting bigger, so often it's parked cars. So not everything costs a lot of money. It doesn't have to be a bus lane, for example. It can be clever signal technology, which car drivers don't realise is working against them. So that's a good thing. And sometimes buses need help. So I can think of Trawsfynydd as one example, where buses quite regularly, I understand, get delayed or stuck. And a little bit of yellow paint and a bit of enforcement, easy to say, difficult to do, in his political will. But it sends out a very strong message about the importance of bus. So I would urge you to just think about that. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Right, I can see no more raised hands, and we have actually been here for 1 hour and 3/4. So you might have gone on for a long time talking, Elliot, but you've gone on for even longer answering questions. So Elliot and Tom, I would certainly like to thank you on behalf of everyone on here. Had we been in a room, we would have given you a round of applause, but it's not quite so easy on Zoom, although you can see a few clapping hands going around for you now. So thank you very much for giving us the time. Hopefully we haven't given you too much of a hard time, and actually I think some of the questions have actually been quite interesting and thought-provoking. Before we close, I'd just like to remind you of the next 2 Zoom meetings that we've got coming up with the OS. On the 11th of February, Giles Fernley is going to talk to us, and he's going to look back at his years at First. And he thinks there might be 1 or 2 stories that could be told now that may not have been told then, which we will find out when we get there. But Giles is going to talk to us on the 11th of February. On the 11th of March, David Heckle will be addressing us. David works for the Western England Combined Authority, and he's going to be talking about Westlink, the journey so far. Westlink, you may know, is a demand responsive service that has evolved over 3 years. It's come to an end, the funding for it, just after March, and people are wondering what the future of it may hold. Anyway, David's agreed to come to talk to us about the whole process, because a lot of government money's gone into it, and it'll be interesting to find out if it's been well spent or not. So there are 2 forthcoming meetings, both on the 11th in February and March, that you're more than welcome to come along to. Other than that, thank you very much, Elliot, and thank you very much, Tom. Wish you well with Ceredigion, and it sounds like there's less routes there, Tom, so it should be a little bit less of a headache.
Indeed, yeah, there's a great deal less there. So yeah, it should be. Well, I'm going to say this, touching wood here, a little bit easier, but we'll wait and see on that front. But yeah, thank you very much for having us all as well. And like I've said throughout, any feedback on the Powys Local Bus Network is very much welcome, and wherever possible, we will work on it really. So,
well, cheers, thanks very much, gents, and I'll declare the meeting closed.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Cheers.
Bye.